On today's show, did he cheat? Was he an old fraud?
Look,
He
look,
can't get
look,
hard, but he can certainly get
look.
floppy.
Dan freaking.
Um,
Alright,
Sean, Sean,
alright.
come on. I mean, he said you weren't a good enough manager, and you think you are. Which bloody one
Look,
is it?
look, mate, I'm telling you now.
Don't
I,
call
I
me
did,
mate. The
I
name's
did,
Jeremy.
I did the best. Jerry.
No, not Jez.
Listen,
No, not
I
Jerry.
did the
It's
best I could. I
Jeremy.
did the best I could with those boys. And look, ultimately, it was the club's fault. No ownership. We're gonna go down to championship. And I've got to smoke a cigar before I lose my voice.
Look, I think you spent too much time eating wooden nails, and for the first time, I'm
Well,
dealing
look,
with someone
look,
who didn't, who
look.
didn't cheat on his partner, which is an
Look,
upgrade. But
at Burnley, my wages weren't that great, so it's all I had to
could
eat.
someone take this idiot away? He hasn't
Ah,
got the time. Floppy, what do you think, Floppy? Because you couldn't get it hard, but you might have had it hard, but you flopped.
well, for sure, my name is Rafa,
No, Floppy. I'm not talking about Rafa, I'm talking about your focus.
and that's a, and that today is him trying to trick me into doing a floppy, which is not going to happen. But I will do my fact, which is all I can do in a Spanish accent. So there you
Oh,
go.
yeah. I mean, Everton are a bit fucked.
Yeah, they really are. Well, welcome to today's episode with a bit of the flair for the dramatic at the beginning, as usual.
Always. With all
So
these
much.
sackings, we had to start somewhere, didn't we?
Yeah, all these sackings. I think it's Christmas.
Well, I mean, there's so many sacks. Even kids would be impressed. And they
Yeah,
probably don't
literally.
even understand what a Sean Deitsch even means.
No, because neither do I at this point.
Well, yeah, what does it mean?
Well, exactly. Look, today we're going to do results. I think that's gone out the window. Really, we'll focus on a few of them. The FA Cup,
Too
but
much going on.
yeah, way
Can't,
too much.
yeah.
Let's do. We'll deal with the first manager of the day to go, Floppy. I think I
I've
deserve
got
my own
nothing to say for
monologue
the
on that.
first couple of minutes, yeah, because it's your team.
Look, it had to come. I think the way West Ham dealt with it was embarrassing. They should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. On the other hand, Lopetegui could have resigned and put it all to an end if he really wanted to, but he wanted the payout, so don't blame him there. Ultimately, I don't feel too bad for him. I feel bad for him on a personal level because he had a job to do and he couldn't do the job, but it was a bad appointment in the first place. I remember saying to you at the time, I will support him because you have to support your manager, but I was not too happy with it, and I thought it was the wrong choice. I think Potter was a free agent at the time. Could have very easily come along. He's obviously wanted to come along because he took the contract, or he wouldn't have done it. So why didn't we do it to begin with? Probably because he wanted too high a wage. Now we've had to pay Lopetegui off and get Potter anyway. So I think ultimately, good sacking. Good for the club. Not good for Lopetegui. I wish him well. Obviously, hopefully he gets a job in Spain or something. Not a bad manager in certain situations. I could see him going to other clubs. I just don't think he's right for the Premier League, to be honest with you. I don't think he's a complete failure. He's obviously not. He's managed elite teams, as you well know. West Ham among them. But
Do you think for a little while he thought he could do a good job?
I,
I'm not even saying by the end, but do you think like he didn't give up and he refused? And I
I,
don't
I
know if he
respect
maybe
that.
felt he had it in him.
I respect that. Yeah, and I think, of course, thought he had it in him, or he wouldn't have signed the contract.
I'm talking about after though, when it got
Oh right,
hard. I
yeah,
think he still felt that he maybe had a chance to turn it
I
around.
think he did. I think that's quite obvious from what what's been said and what's been done. I think he was given a lot more praise than he deserved in his career. If you want me to be honest, I think he left Wolves because he went in a bit of a strop. And look, I remember at the time when it happened, I understood what he was saying, and we both thought Wolves was beyond saviour. But they got a manager that actually did the job well better than Lopetegui, and there's a lot to be said for that. He left a club at the worst time you can leave a club, by the way. Because he wasn't getting his own way. And look, I get it. Maybe he was missold, but a good manager tries his best to work with what he has. So even from that point of view, I never thought it was a good idea. But yeah, I think he thought he had what it took, and
I think he got one who did a better job at Wolves with Gary O'Neill, but at the same time, not to say that Gary O'Neill didn't do a good job because obviously he did, but we don't know how much of a good job that Floppy would have done because he didn't actually take that season at all.
I
So
know.
in
Yeah,
the first season they finished 13th. Don't forget when and I'm not saying that obviously for West Ham he was a completely destructive appointment on the club to be honest,
yeah,
but when he was at Wolves the first time, don't forget he took them from the bottom three to 13th, which
you're
is
right.
not bad. Bottom three to 13th in a half season, which is not the
It's not
worst
bad
thing
at
to do.
all. No, it's not bad at all. And I think if you're there was a phrase I think a Talksport caller used, oddly enough, about David Moyes, that when he went to Everton, then he went to United. He brought United to Everton's level. You know, in terms of finish, they said they brought a United team to an Everton finish. I think that was probably unfair, but I think in this case it is fair that he was bringing us to a Wolves level.
Yeah,
I mean, we're literally 14th as we speak, so actually he more or less has brought us to a Wolves level. And look, that's what you expect from a manager that does that. You know, that if you have a certain level, I don't think Lopetegui was gonna be above his. I mean, I know me and you had a joke about it at the time when I said we finished fifth. Obviously, you know, I think realistically, I don't think that was, you know, and I think you know for a fact I didn't think that was a realistic prospect. But it was fun to wind you up nonetheless. Really did get the right reaction out of you as well, by the way. But look, I think Lopetegui had a level. I more or less hoped he would finish in a European spot. That ship has now sailed, I think. Look, never say never, because the Premier League is a really weird place, and you don't necessarily know. I would say it's unlikely, but I also would have said that Forest were unlikely to finish third, you know, this time last season. You know, so I think you got to look at it from a positive point of view. We got a game tonight. Who I'm now trying to remember who we're playing.
Fulham.
Fulham, that's it. We've also got a few London derbies coming up. You know, I think it's going to be interesting tonight because Fulham, on paper, at home, we should beat really, but we've got a lot of injuries
I
at the
wouldn't be
minute.
so sure. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be so sure. They're
Well, I
not.
was about
They're
to.
a
They,
very good team for them.
they are.
Underrated, I think, by a lot of people.
I agree. No, I totally agree. But what I'm saying is, on paper, we'd probably be the favourites. Possibly not now because of our injuries. But I think this is Potter's chance to get something out of this game. I don't think he needs to. It's his first Premier League game. People are already talking about pressure, which I find ridiculous. I read an article in The Athletic today that was saying about how Potter needs to win these London derbies to keep the fans on side. I think that's a load of old bollocks, if you want me to be honest. It's hot air, right? He doesn't need to. He's got this season as a write off. He could lose every game of this season, not literally, obviously, but you know what I
No,
mean.
I don't, well, yeah, you couldn't get away with that. I don't think because
But
that really
yeah,
would
but you
be
know what I
Luton.
mean. He could lose big games and
Yeah,
survive quite easily because he's got to rebuild. If he loses against Fulham today, yeah, no one's going to be happy about it. But you know, he's had three days or something to train with the team. You've got to give him credit somewhere. You've got to give him a chance. And I said that about Lopetegui, and I'll say it about every other manager that comes to the club. But you do have to give him a chance because if you don't, then you can't then say for sure what's going to happen. And this season was not Graham Potter's season. He didn't have a summer window to bring players in. He's got the January window, but we've already spent enough money, so we've got to be careful now with FFP, who we bring in. We've got to bring in the right people.
you've got to bring in a striker as a matter of
Yeah,
urgency.
yeah, and so have Arsenal. So it'll be very interesting to see who wins that race because I think it will be a race. I don't think both teams are going to get their way. I'll make that prediction now because
Yeah,
we won't sign a shitty striker,
but
right?
you have done multiple
Yeah,
times.
but I think now it's way too important. Not you can't do it. Fulkrug was like an emergency side, and now he's injured. We've got to bring in someone half decent.
Was
I'm
he
not saying
emergency signing or was he Tim pushing for it? I mean, you weren't in the summer. You weren't in an emergency situation,
no,
to
we
be honest.
weren't. No, we weren't. No, we weren't. Agreed. But I think we do now need a striker. We're not going to sign a really bad one. So we will sign it. I'm not saying we'll sign the best of the best, by the way. We clearly can't
No,
afford it.
I just think in general, like what can you do in January? The famous thing this morning that Potter said when he said that we're looking for strikers, and he said, but you're limited on what you can do, and he said it's not like Haaland's available because we can't afford him, and he's not
Yeah,
available to us. But he said like what? That's what I say to you. That's the question that I'm putting to you
Yeah,
is
Potter's
what can
absolutely
you do
right
in
though.
January?
I don't know, but I think we have to do something.
You have to do something, but what are your options?
I
Because
don't know.
everyone knows
That's
that the
where.
market in January is inflated.
Yeah, I agree. And we may leave it till June. We may just write off this season because we're not going to get relegated, but we're not going to win
Who are you going
anything
to put
either.
there? You've
Pardon?
still got to play someone there. I mean, you've got Ings, but if he gets injured, you haven't got anyone.
I agree, but then you have to substitute, don't you? Or change the formation. You don't need a striker.
You
It's
still need a false
you
nine,
need. Yeah, of
someone
course
who's
you do.
capable to play up there.
Of course you
That's
do.
what you need.
But then Bowen hopefully will return soon, and you know, if not, you know you can probably use Kudus or something. You know, you can make stuff up. There's no rule that says that people have to play in different places. You know, you just have to make
That's true.
stuff up.
Bowen, I
And
think he's going to be missing for a couple of months from
I
what I've
think I
heard.
believe so. Yeah. I
I
believe, and
mean,
that's a loss. Really, that's the biggest loss. To be fair, Paquetá isn't playing for us this season, really. And so, I,
unless Potter can get something out of him,
yeah,
you never know.
yeah, that is true. I think he probably can. If anyone can, it'll be Graham Potter. I think Graham Potter will get enough out of all these players. What I found interesting was that Potter is not likely to recall Ward-Prowse from loan. And I found that quite
Mm.
interesting
Yeah, I did find that one interesting.
because I heard it live when they asked him. He said currently Ward-Prowse is a Nottingham Forest player, and that's the end of it.
I
Um,
mean, there's the argument that he's off the wage bill of or whatever percentage of it's
yeah,
being paid. So
there is
then
that.
that you can use towards a striker.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that aspect. But I think you need Ward-Prowse right now. I mean, you need midfielders.
Well, you need a lot, but at, at the moment, yeah, you need a midfielder. But at the moment, your priority's got to be a striker. It's got whether it's a loan, whether it's a 10,
I
50
think
million
alone
pound
is a
with a
realistic
decent
prospect.
injury record. It is, but who is there at the moment that
I don't
you
know.
know who do you get on loan? This is the
Last
issue. It's a
season I would have
January
gone in
window.
for Ivan Tony, but he went to Saudi.
Well, yeah. Apparently, you had a £40 million bid turned down this month for a John Duran again. I don't think he's more
Nah,
worth than that now. He's not
yeah,
going to sell for £40 million. Now that I'd say was, it's almost like maybe West. You'd say it was
they're doing it
stupid.
again.
No, it's almost like they're testing it. You know, like if we know what he's done because he started last season as well a bench player who didn't do much, but he finished it really strong
Yeah,
and carried it into this season, which you remember. And he wanted to go there in the summer, didn't he?
that's right.
So maybe it's kind of a little, we're poking you. Can we get you to the table? Even if this, you're not going to accept this offer, but are you going to talk to us? Because
Yeah,
if they really believe in him and they were willing, I don't know. Again, you'll never know anything concrete. But if they're willing to go in for Ferguson with a £60 million, maybe they would pay that much for him. Maybe because he's what is he 20, 21? He's
yeah,
scoring goals for fun. He's a long term option. He's got a good injury record.
yeah. And he's a
Um,
young player, and we can
So
keep him
maybe
for
it's just
years.
to start negotiations. But I think the only thing that you've got to be careful with Duran is that it's like having a kid. He's very very stroppy.
Yeah, and we don't need that right now. That's the
No,
problem. We don't need
but
that right now.
you could do with the goals.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I mean,
the Ronaldo situation all over again, isn't it? Really.
I don't think
He
you would have as many issues at West Ham with him because I think he would be a starter, and I think most of his issues came from not being a
and
starter.
I
But
get that because he's
he
a
is a
brilliant
starter.
player and he deserves to start. To
Of
be
course he
honest,
does. Of course he
I
does.
don't know
But
why he hasn't been. Because I
I
don't.
mean,
Who are they
he does
replacing him
deserve to.
with?
But
I'm
Ollie
not.
Watkins, and you can't just drop him either. That's the
No,
problem.
no, but you can rotate them.
Which he started to do recently.
Yeah, he
But then I
has, but
suppose
it's a bit too late, really. I think.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it is to do with his attitude. Maybe there's a reason that Watkins is getting in front of him. Because if you remember a couple of months ago when he went back and he said, "Yeah, Ollie is a very hard worker and he
Yeah,
just gets on with it." Maybe that's from the start. You don't want a hothead. You want a cool head from the
yeah,
start. And
and
maybe West Ham is the place for him. To be honest.
yeah, and he will always start at West Ham. I can tell you
Yeah.
that. And he can probably. The thing is with good players, right? You know, you get teams like Villa where they're not as good because they're not playing enough. When they come to another team like West Ham, which right now is struggling, he could get you into that goal bit of the top 6 or 7. And it doesn't mean just because a good club selling a good player. It's like look at City and Palmer. At City, he wasn't that great. Now he's scoring goals for fun.
Yeah.
It's
And
the same situation.
we don't know if he'd score that many at West Ham or if he'd
We
score
don't know.
more.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen, but it's worth talking about because they've
We,
obviously got
yeah, we
some
need
intention of
long
something
term.
happening.
Long term, we need a Duran style player.
Yeah,
That is what we need long term, and we have to think long term. But the problem is, if Sullivan is, as the rumours are, getting a bit sick of his ownership at West Ham, he's not going to put his hand in his pocket, is he?
nah.
And neither is Kredinsky, who's just bought the Royal Mail.
But at the same time, if you've got a decent squad and you're higher up the table, the club goes up in value. So it's a
Yeah,
question. It's a question of what do you do at this point
yeah,
because you don't want to sell something that's struggling. That's at the moment West Ham. Okay, you've got a decent squad, but it doesn't look like an attractive place. It's very divided.
yeah. I agree, but I think
So
that can be sorted quite quickly.
but maybe you spend on a good striker, you get higher up the table. Then people think actually you've got the complete squad because you've got the
Yeah,
complete attack. You've
all we
got a
need.
beast of a striker.
Yeah, because our midfield, I still maintain it when fully fit is one of the best in the Premier League. You might disagree. I don't know.
I do. I
But
do.
well, there you
I
go.
think
But
it lacks. I don't think it's a dreadful midfield. I genuinely don't. But it lacks pace.
yeah,
Oh dear.
I don't know what that was.
ah, it lacks pace.
Yeah,
And I think you do need a couple of players, a little bit. You need like a little player, you know. I know it sounds random, but you need like a little Coutinho with a little bit of pace on him,
yeah.
just to
Well,
get into the
Wan-Bissaka's got
boxes.
pace,
He's
but
not a
he
midfielder though.
no, that's
He's
true. But
going to
I'm
play
saying
further
in
forward, but you
terms,
need a little central beast, or to
yeah.
play as a number 10.
Oh right, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
Because
you mean a Wan-Bissaka that's further to the front?
yeah, but you've got obviously a packet of crisps, but he's not the answer, to be honest. I mean, and if he is the answer, and if Potter gets the most, I mean, you need two of them. You need to
Yeah. If
rotate your.
Paquetá's the answer, what's the question?
Well, where's the pace and where's the
Yeah, but
number
that's what I'm
10?
saying. But if Paquetá's the answer, then surely what is the question? Do you know what I mean? It-
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I suppose the question is at the moment, and if he is the answer to it, it will change. But the question at the moment is, have you got that?
yeah,
And the answer is, well, can he like if he proves it or not? That will answer it. But I don't know if he's going to play a 3-4-2-1, you could do with another one of them really anyway.
yeah, I agree.
But
But I
well,
think
I don't know.
it's a difficult one. It is a difficult. West Ham's conundrum is because we have really good players. When they're all fit, we do have solid players. You know, Kudus, Paquetá, Bowen. You know, there is a good and Ward Prowse if he's fit. You know, you could go on, but the point is there are good players there, and they just need a Wan-Bissaka as well. Mavropanos is above average. You know, you've not got a
That's
terrible
true.
squad. That you've not.
I think Mavropanos could do with upgrading. I'm not saying you can't use him now, and I'm not saying he's dreadful, but I
Well, I
think you
said
could
above
probably
average.
get.
I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
think
saying
he's
for
massive, but
West Ham
he's
level, you
yeah,
could probably get an upgrade. To
yeah.
be
But
honest,
my point is, we're not a 14th squad. We're just in 14th place at the minute,
yeah,
which sounds contradictory, I know, but you know what I mean.
well, that's what happens when you bring in a completely clueless person. Look, I don't want to. I don't want to say anything in any way because, all right, whatever happened, happened. I don't know. We weren't there when they made the appointments, were we?
No, I would
It's
love to be a fly on
questionable.
the wall, though.
Yeah, same. It's very questionable, but we'll never
Yeah,
actually know
no,
unless someone comes and tells us. But
precisely.
I just, it was never going to work, right?
Yep.
And I think the main point of other than it was never going to work that I'm going to make here, which brought me on to this, is that he's not lasted long anywhere he's been. If
No,
you go back and look at his managerial career, he has not lasted long at any club. Now,
no,
do you not
I agree.
think that when you appoint someone, do you not think back as a point of reference that maybe why is he not lasting?
Well,
What's
it's a
going on?
Pellegrini all over again, apart from the fact that in some ways we defied logic, we defied gravity, really. It's remarkable we're not an 18th because,
Defied sense as well.
for them,
You defied sense.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, I know we're one of the worst on goals conceded again, which is a huge problem, and we're going to come on to David Moyes in a minute. But I know you have a few nice words to say about him.
I do. Yeah, I'm just straight to the point, me.
Yeah. But look, I think there's nothing else we can say on West Ham. We've got to give Potter some time, and we will be back to analyse results on Thursday or Friday, which is a really weird day to do it. But you know, we're not in any Premier League to do anything with, so
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a very mad one because you got game Thursday night, so we'd either have to do late night Thursday, which is a possibility.
I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that,
Oh.
but then you're straight into the weekend, the games again. So it's
Yeah,
going to be a flat out week.
it is. We'll do a Thursday night late, and then maybe a Monday night recording or Tuesday night recording again.
Yeah, it's a good thing
Catch
we
up.
love what we do.
It is. It is a good job with what we do. So
Yeah,
moving on then. Where do you want to go next?
I want to go to Luton only
Okay.
because we, like I said to you before we started recording, we can do Moyes in a minute, but we made a point of Luton in
We
about
did.
November, was it?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I think it was November,
Um,
December-ish, early
And
December maybe.
we've touched on Everton, but I feel like we've spoke about West Ham and Luton a little bit more.
Yeah,
What do you think, Rob Edwards?
I think it
What
had
would
to
you say?
happen. I think it had
Yeah,
to, and I respect for what he did, full respect. But it's not going well, and it had to end this way. Didn't see it really ending any other way, to be honest. And I'm
no,
not an
I
expert
agree.
on Luton. You're far more an expert on me. But I think they've just had a disastrous season this season. I think it's been just awful, considering this time last season they're in the Premier League, possibly even hoping to survive. I think they did. You know, I think that's disastrous and shameful, really.
It's similar to what I said to you though. I think I said it to you in about August when I said to you that Luton were never meant to be in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So
It was
everyone
an
knows that.
accident.
Yeah, but also they were playing under no pressure to go up. They had no, and when they went up, they had no pressure. And I think now we've seen, and I said to you before, I think that it could go either way.
Yeah.
Now we've seen the result of Luton under pressure. They've
Yeah.
never had to do it. They don't know what you can tell. They do not have a clue.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, I think the problem there is, and I can't confirm it again. I've not spoken to any Luton players. I'm not quite that famous yet. Maybe one day we'll get snapped up by somewhere and get access to sources. But
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
from from what I'd say is, if you haven't got the right attitude, right, because as I said, they weren't meant to be there. But I think there will be players there now that probably think, well, I should be in the Premier League because I did well last season.
Yeah,
But
and the
the
truth is
thing
they
is, you're
shouldn't.
not. We're there, and even if they should, even if they've got one or two that maybe could get away with it, the truth is you're not. You can't play any better than what the level you're at. You have to commit yourself to the level that you're at, and if you're not going to do that, you're going to have problems. And
Absolutely.
it comes down to this whole big attitude thing of, yeah, but I was in the Premier League last season. But just because you was in the Premier League last season, it doesn't mean you're going to be in the Premier League this season. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I think again, it's a lot of pressure. I think the pressure has really got to him, and I think they did the right thing in a way. They sacked him before it turned nasty,
Yeah.
because it's not great there at the moment, but it hasn't turned nasty yet. It will do if he stays there too long. It will turn nasty.
I still think they should have got rid of him before.
Yeah,
I
so
don't
do
think.
I.
I think he should have left a legend because what he did was
He would,
legendary. Let's not
he would.
exaggerate.
But then also leaving a legend gives it kind of contradicts itself, doesn't it? Because when you've done well like that, you get more credit. So when you get
Yeah.
more credit, you get longer. If he hadn't done what he did and Luton had gone from 6th to 20, if he'd have been gone by September, October,
True.
but because of what he did, it buys you time. It's like when we had a bad season a couple of years ago. No one was going to sack Klopp. And I didn't say we should for a second, which you'll
Hold on
remember.
1 second, Donald. You keep talking if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I didn't say that Liverpool should sack Klopp. And I think credit in the bank is a dangerous thing because it buys you too much time. And when it buys you too much time, sometimes you'll be looking at Luton's case, you're looking at the drop. But when you're looking at the drop, I think they've had to pull through and they're hanging above it. And when you do that, you can't keep going. You got to change something. And the first thing to change, sadly, was Rob.
My apologies. I hope that you held down the fort. I think you did really well.
I did, yeah. I was saying, I'm not going to repeat it again, obviously,
Yeah.
for the sake of boring people, but I was saying that about Liverpool not sacking Klopp and Rob
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
lot of credit. And
I
when
agree.
things go wrong and it gets to that point, the first thing you change is, unfortunately, in this
Yeah.
situation, Rob.
I agree. Yeah. Apologies for that, people. I was taking in a delivery of chocolate seashells, which was apparently more important than my podcast studio. So
Yeah, well, so it's a nice can of Pepsi Max.
yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So professional here at the Right Wingers podcast. You
Of
can
course, of
tell.
course. Yeah.
But that's what we love about it. We just get to have a chat, and this is, to be honest, this is the sort of thing we chat off air, really. So,
I was
you know,
about to say, we're not doing anything different. The difference
no,
is we're recording it and then putting it out there.
yeah,
So,
you get to see how human life works for people who do
yeah,
podcasts,
other
I
than that,
suppose.
it's the same. I mean, we must spend about, what, 40 hours a week talking football?
Oh, easily, yeah, easily.
Yeah, easily.
When we're in the same house, when you come up to
Oh, it's a
Scotland with
nightmare.
me,
It
it
is,
really is.
especially if we wake up at night. It's football all night and football all
Yeah,
day.
I want to try and get you down for transfer deadline day. Actually, if you want to do that.
Well, by our current schedule of planning, I will be there anyway.
Ah, cool, nice one.
Oh yes, oh
Right, well,
yes,
I'll get that sorted then in the next day or two.
nice,
And the
legend.
big rail fare sale is on, by the way. You're getting 50% off tickets.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain. And you lucky bastards out there will get to see us in person for transfer deadline day.
Yeah, on the
Aren't you
YouTube.
so lucky?
Yeah, on the
On the
YouTube.
tubes.
Yeah, on the tube of the U.
Yeah, as long as you don't sack me like Rob Edwards.
Yeah, no, I'm not planning on doing that.
Oh,
I
that's good.
value you as a co-host.
Good, I'm secure. We love a bit of
Yeah,
security.
yeah. I mean, you don't get paid nothing though.
Ah, you fat bastard.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't get paid nothing because you spend it all on food.
There is that.
Well, there is, yeah.
Yeah, there is that.
So there's nothing more you can say about Luton. It was unfortunate. I did like the CEO statement. I thought it was
I
respectful.
thought it was really respectful. Yeah,
Yeah,
considering Everton's statement. I
but
mean, look at two
I think Luton
contrasts.
genuinely. We used the word, and it has brought me onto it because you mentioned Everton's statement. mutual consent. I genuinely think Luton probably did have a word with Rob,
Yeah,
and Rob would have said, "Look, it probably isn't working." I think they had that level of respect for each other. That yeah, I think Rob probably did have quite a big say in
yeah,
it.
and I got to say, because I'm not very virtuous about football, and I think this respect word gets thrown around way too much. There's no respect in football, but I think there are a few clubs where respect is genuine and where it is given. And
Yeah,
I'll give you a few examples. I'll give you Bill Kemp at Everton with David Moyes. I
yeah,
think that was a genuine, respectful relationship. I think Klopp at Liverpool. I think that was a genuine, respectful relationship. Although there was disagreements, of course there were, but it was a respectful relationship. And Rob Edwards at Luton is probably the most recent big example. I genuinely
yeah.
think there is respect given, and them saying, "Look, I don't know what it is. This ain't working."
I think everyone knew it was probably the added pressure, and it just weren't working. And I think even Rob's never had to manage under pressure because he did.
Okay, let's
He
have a
went
few.
to Watford and got
Let's take.
sacked.
Sorry, go on. You
Well, he got sacked
out
at
there
Watford,
for
didn't
that.
he, after a month? So
Yeah.
he's never had any pressure on him as a manager, to be honest. So this
No.
is a first for him and the
Yeah.
players.
Well, getting sacked for Watford after a month's like an Alex Ferguson stint at United, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's quite impressive, actually.
Yeah. But
Well
on a
done, Rob.
yeah, on a serious note, how do you think this reflects on Rob?
I don't think it damages him too much. I don't think he's going to appear in the Premier League, but
I don't think he
I
ever
think
was really. I think it was an
I
accident.
don't know. I don't know. I think it wasn't that he couldn't. I think he ended up going up with a club too quick. I don't think if he doesn't go up with Luton, Premier
How
League
old
clubs
is
will
he? Is
get
he a
him.
young
Yeah,
manager? I don't
yeah. He's
know.
about 41,
Oh,
42.
okay. Well, he's got time. He's got a good 10 years of, you
He'll
know.
make it, I
Yeah.
think,
Do you think he'll
and
make it?
I think he would have done. I just think that Luton went up, and I guess he joined a club that was on the up, and it was a really good atmosphere
Yeah,
inside, and they ended up going up. I don't think you don't look at him as a Premier League manager before that, and Premier League clubs wouldn't have looked at him. But
I understand. Yeah,
I don't think he's damaged himself. I think he could easily get a job in the Championship.
yeah, understood. I know what you mean. Okay, let's move on to what you've all been waiting for. Everton.
Uh,
There are,
Neverton,
yeah, Neverton. Yeah.
never quite there, Ton.
Look, I mean, first of all, my relationship with Everton as much as you hate it. I follow it more than I probably would have done a few years ago. Um, which is
Everton,
something.
again, I say it to you so many times, but I don't hate Everton because they're Everton. And this is not me saying that you've said it. I'm just putting it on the podcast because
Yeah,
it's a genuine point. I don't even hate Everton because they're Everton. I hate them because they are so boring.
yeah, but
Oh,
look, well, yeah,
I still
well,
love beating them, obviously, and hate
yeah.
losing to them. But they
Half
are
my
so
family now are
boring.
Everton lot, so well,
Yeah.
actually a good 60% of that lot are Liverpool, but you know, and then there's the rest are Everton. So I have to follow Everton. It gives me a good conversation when I'm down when I'm in England. You can I can chat about Everton, and it's actually quite interesting to
As long as you
see.
don't remember which game brought your love for football on.
Oh, I do. Don't you worry about that. It's never
Did I
forgotten.
say as long as you don't remember? I think I just said that as long as you don't remember.
Yeah.
What I meant is as long as you don't forget.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I always remember what game of football brought me into it. It was Liverpool United.
What are you gonna sack ya? What are you gonna sack
Thank
ya?
you. But no, what I was saying was that from you say Everton are boring, and you're not wrong. But I think I've learnt more about Everton in the last sort of what would it be, 2 and a bit years now.
Yeah, you are now our resident Everton expert, really,
I
in
kind of
terms
well,
of
yeah.
between the two of us.
Our resident Everton expert probably wouldn't come on our podcast, but it would be brilliant if he did.
It would be actually. Yeah, you should try and tap him up for an appearance one day.
Maybe. Um, I doubt it. I'd maybe ask him to do it just for me.
You never know. You don't
Yeah,
know until you
exactly.
try.
Exactly. Gonna put on the sort of the presenter's charm, as I'd call it, and say, look,
Oh yes.
come on,
Oh
just for an
yes.
hour.
Come on, just for the
But
boys.
yeah, but instead, I'm basically dispatched to channel my information through this podcast, which I'm now going to do with no one's permission. Um, I think the general feel. I mean, Everton fans are 50-50, aren't they, about Moyes?
Yeah,
And it
rightly
really
so. In
is.
a way,
Pardon?
rightly so in a way.
Yeah, I see both sides. I think our designated Everton fan, who is very much pro Moyes, just remembers the good times. But the interesting thing is, because the argument is a lot of them don't remember the good times Everton, and that is true for a lot of the pro Moyes people. But it's not true in this case because he was born in, we'll say the 70s. I can't remember when. Um, Look, and so he grew up with Everton being a good club. And went to games, in his teens where they won the FA Cup and stuff like that. And so he knew the good times when they were winning trophies and the
You
bad
haven't won
times.
a trophy. You haven't won a trophy since 1995. Do excuse
Okay.
my
Yeah, I'm
allegiances.
gonna say, okay, calm down. He's all coming out now. Um, yeah, look, I think, but he's still a supporter of Moyes and thinks he's the one to save the club, and I quite agree. I think they should never have got rid of Dyche, as you remember me saying. But now that they have, I think if David Moyes can do it, I don't see anyone else that can. And you disagree, I know, but I'd like you to give me a name of someone you think could do it if it wasn't
Oddly
Moyes.
enough, Gary O'Neill.
Okay, it's an interesting one. I think David Moyes, with the experience he's got, he's done it once as well. I can see why they've gone for him.
But they had a yeah, all right. They were in the same position, but they had a squad last time. David Moyes, and I say it again, and I said it to you the other day. When he was at West Ham, he relied on the fact that his attackers could score goals. Look how open your defence was, right?
Yeah, I
You
remember.
had an attack that could
Oh, I
score.
remember.
Everton do not have an attack that can score.
No,
So if the defence is
but
going to
but
be
if
that
he gets
open,
Calvert Lewin scoring goals, then he's on.
Calvert-Lewin is going to leave this summer, and Everton probably won't have the money to replace him. It's a
Doesn't matter.
temporary
He
fix.
only needs till the summer.
Okay, but it's temporary.
It is. They can buy. They've got money after the summer because it was FFP that got them. I think they're at that cycle now.
Calvert-Lewin, I think, is done. To be completely honest, I'm not saying definitely,
Yeah,
but I think his head's in other places, and wherever his head is now, I don't think it's Everton.
maybe so. But I think Moyes has to get him
He
scoring
has
now.
to try with what he's got, and he's
Yeah.
got Madou.
You never did find his name then.
I found it, just can't pronounce it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I'll give you some
You're
context.
a very good
Not
pundit.
you, but the podcast. I'll give some context. Yesterday we were talking about the player that came from Sheffield United, whose name I will try to pronounce. I will try. I know his first name is Illiman, and I think it's something like Undai, something like that. I don't know. Probably got that brutally wrong. But we yesterday decided that we couldn't pronounce his name, so we just
Yeah.
call him Madudu.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So yeah,
Uh,
they've got Madudu,
so
and I think
please don't
Madudu can
sue
score
us.
goals.
Please
Yeah.
don't sue us via your lawyers that have definitely names we can pronounce.
Yeah, and if you are listening, Madudu, well, please do not masusu us.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Of course, he's not listening. We're not that famous.
Nah.
But no, Madudu. I've got to stop calling him that.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna think
think,
of a different, more appropriate name.
yeah, I think so. But he does score goals,
Yeah.
and but you can't rely on one player to do it.
No, you can't. Um.
Maybe McNeil scores a couple of goals, but I can't even remember the last time he scored. To be
Yeah.
honest, I cannot remember the last. Calvert-Lewin again, like I said, I don't think his head's there. I think he knows that he can get a free escape. I don't think his head's been there for a couple of years, to be completely honest. He's been injury prone, which I'm surprised a lot.
Yeah.
Surprised a lot of clubs have been linked with him because of that. But I suppose when he's free, it doesn't really matter.
It does. But you
Um,
still got to pay him.
of course, but you haven't got to pay any fees for he's not going to be on a maximum wage, right? He's not going to be on a maximum wage, and he'll probably do a favour. He's been linked with a lot of Italian clubs. He'll probably do him a favour out there.
Very true.
Um, but it's not like you're buying an injury-prone player for £20 million. If you was to offer him a basic wage, he's going to get a decent wage. But say his whole contract was worth, I don't know, 10, 15 million quid over 5 years. You're not paying a fee for him. You're paying the contract, so you're not paying the £20 million on top.
Agreed.
And if he scores you 10 goals a season, 15 goals a season, it's not the greatest return, but he's a free transfer that maybe comes off the bench and scores, or maybe he goes somewhere else and loves it. Again, he's been injury prone and his head's. I just don't think his head's at Everton, but that's I think the problem for Moyes because Moyes has got to sort that out. Now
Yeah.
he's there. It's his responsibility to get the players playing, and I just think the issue with Moyes is I've got nothing against him to be honest. I just think for Everton, the issue is that a lot of his defence gets blown open and he relies on attackers. And they don't have the. If you're 3-0 down, you're not going to come back to 3-2 or 3-3 because they don't have the attack to do that. I
Very
feel
true.
like I feel like with Everton it'll be a case of once he's lost the game by a couple and they've been blown open, then it's a defeat.
Yeah. No, I don't. I can't really. What I'll say is, I think you it will cut out there. Um. Yeah.
You went a bit funny, but you're
Yeah.
back
It
now.
went off. It went off speaker. That's what it was. Um. look, if he can change the formula, because he's he's done this for years, so we will know that
He'll
that's
know.
maybe not an option. And so my expectation would be that he would, that he would change that formation.
I just think he was very stubborn at West Ham.
He was very stubborn, but we weren't in
And a
the
lot of
relegation
managers are
scrap.
like,
And
no,
when
you
we
weren't in the
when we were,
relegation.
he saved us. In fairness,
He saved you, yeah. But he was helped by the fact that he inherited Antonio when he was banging in goals for fun.
that is
And
very true.
he was hitting 3 and 4 in each game, which is going to get you out of most situations. Would he have saved you without that? Maybe, but only by a point or two. And I think Everton's.
But in
I
need
think the
though.
mentality at Everton's damaged. I just think there's so much there that needs rebuilding. The relationship for the fans with the club, I think a lot of them, even if they wanted him back, a lot of the thing is the relationship needs to be repaired. There's so much damage done there at the moment, and I think if he doesn't start getting results quickly, you're going to lose the confidence of the fans because of the situation. Like, no Everton fan is going to sit there and openly say to you, we should be starting life in our new stadium next season in the Championship. So if you start losing games and you drop into that relegation zone, you're up against it very quick. It doesn't matter at the moment as a manager who you are, you're going to be up against it very, very quickly.
Yeah, and we've just seen that Dan Freakin's like a mob boss. He does
Yeah,
not mess
yeah.
about. He's
He
like the
comes in with his gun and
Sopranos.
shoots off your head.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he does it laughing as well.
Even Sean Deitsch couldn't give a response back, and he's normally got a response for most things.
Yeah, I think Sean Deitch is pretty much what I would call speechless.
Yeah, too many wooden nails in his throat, probably.
Yeah, does tend to affect one's speech.
Although this time Dan Friedkin put him in there with a hammer, I'd imagine, because he didn't have a chance.
Yeah, no, Dan Freakin won that battle.
But again, I suppose we've kind of spoke about what we think Moyes and you seem to think it's a good appointment. But what I did like is that you can kind of see my reasoning as well. I'm not going to say it's going to be a disastrous appointment. I'm just saying it's a risky appointment.
What I mean
I
by
don't
good
think it's
appointments for Everton's situation, I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not a good appointment for City, put it that way. But
no.
Everton need to get out of their situation, and I think Moyes is probably the right man to do it.
And we're not talking about City, which is fine, which is why I say you say it's a good appointment. I'm not
Yeah,
obviously not going to say anything about what you say.
I should hope
I
not, mate.
I don't think it's a bad appointment. I just think it's a risky appointment because, like I said, he hasn't got the attack to come back into games. If he can fix the defence, which they've not been defensively bad this season, really. If
No,
he can
agreed.
keep that and doesn't blow them open like West Ham, yeah, you got a good appointment on your hands. But it's not so much a bad appointment as risky.
Agreed.
But I suppose we should cover Sean, even if it's
Yeah,
briefly. I mean, it comes down to what I said to you the other day.
I
Like
think it was
we
a
both
disaster.
didn't say he should go, but like I said to you the other day, it's the whole kind of thing of
If you were to, right, I know you
not
give
the manager.
objective opinions about the fans, right, and I couldn't give a bollocks what the fans think on
I
various
couldn't give a
things.
bollocks what they think. I just cover all bases.
That's
I
the
don't
chairman
care.
in me. You were chairman of Everton for some reason, right? Obviously, you did something horrible
Hopefully
in
not.
your life,
Yeah, obviously I've killed
for
someone.
your sake, yeah. And you're now chairman of Everton, and you're not trying to ruin them before you say something like that.
Why would I do that? It makes the club worth less for me to sell.
Very true. Okay, do you sack Deitch?
No.
No. And that's where I just think, why do you? Because I get it, right? He's not lasting next season. Of course he isn't. No one's. I don't think a single person said, "Oh yeah, we should keep Sean Dyche going into the new stadium." You know, I just think that's nuts, right? To think that. On the other hand, it's even equally or more nuts to sack him now when you're at mid-season, a point above relegation, probably will be a point below relegation after your next game. It doesn't matter who you've got. I mean, what are they hoping? They get a managerial bounce
Yeah.
against Tottenham, I think it is. Is it Tottenham they're playing next?
I think it's Villa tomorrow night.
Is it Villa? Why would I get Tottenham from then? I don't know. Villa. Well, even so, that's
Yeah,
even
Tottenham's
worse.
got North London derby. Tottenham's got Arsenal.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. No. So Villa, even worse in many cases. Not quite
Yeah.
in the goals sense, but Tottenham are too leaky for Everton. They could probably get one or two goals past Villa. You ain't getting nothing past on a good day. So you're most likely losing 3 points tomorrow, right? So what you're going to do? You're going to get managerial bounce, which could give you 3 points, and what like puts you 4 points, and then you hope that the other three teams at the bottom don't get any points. It's
Yeah.
a ludicrous appointment, not appointment. It's a ludicrous decision to
But it
sack
comes.
Deitch
comes
now.
down to it, doesn't it? And I'm not saying I agree with it. And I think it was good to clear that up because obviously we was messaging the other day when it happened, and you
Yeah,
can never get your point across on messages. But it's like I said to you, it's the whole not our manager. We don't want it to be our problem. If you look at it like that, they're thinking this manager's left us a point above relegation. We're not going down. That's their answer. We're not going down. We don't want him because we didn't put him here. I'm
yeah.
not. I think they're completely wrong. But
No,
the
I think that's a very
psychology of
valid argument
of
you're
the
making.
people with the power is a very strange psychology, and it's almost like we don't want him here. We never asked for him. So actually, what we're going to do is we're going to boot him out. Okay, we're going to shift the blame on us if we go down. But it's like I said to you yesterday. In a way, they've got nothing to lose because the atmosphere there wasn't great, and Dyche I don't think was going to have support for very long. A lot of people said give him till the end of the season, but if they drop into the relegation zone, that people are not going to say that. You know, and that's not just Everton. You know what the football fans are like.
I
People are
agree.
not going to say that if they drop. So they had nothing to lose because if you get rid of him now, they'll get the blame for changing the manager and going down. If he stays and goes down, they'll get the blame for not having the bollocks to do anything.
Yeah.
So I suppose in their idea, it's kind of like, well, we've got nothing to lose. He's not our manager. We're going to get the blame either way, so let's just do it. I'm not. I
No,
don't think it's right. I think you should give him the season, but
yeah, I think you are right, and
you know.
there is actually a point to that, right? That I can see why they did it for that reason, but now it's more their fault if anything happens.
But they don't care
I know. Well,
because
no, clearly Dan Freakin has no conscience,
no.
mate.
But what they'll say is, well, we're acting in what's best. Okay, whether it's right or wrong, um, it's a case of he's not our manager, and I genuinely think that's what it is with a lot of owners when they come in and take over a club. We didn't want him here. We're going to get rid of him. We're
Yeah,
going to
that
start
happens at
rebuilding and
almost
do
every
things our
club. You
way.
know, you can bet
Yeah.
your life savings it's going to happen probably, and
Look, all it took
no
was
doubt the one time you do, you'd lose it. But you know,
a couple of bad results. I mean, what have they been in charge for? About 3 games, 4 games.
roughly,
So they obviously didn't want him when they came in. That was obvious. But sometimes you take as an owner, you'll take those bad results and you'll think, well, that's my reason to do what I wanted to do anyway because I don't want him. I never asked for him. I'm not going to back him, and I'm going to get
yeah,
rid of him and do things my way. And sometimes 3 or 4 bad results is all it takes because look, you can have time with an existing owner. You can have let's put it as a percentage meter just for sense, right? You could be on 40% with Mashiri, right?
yeah,
New owners come in, you're on about 10, 15% because I'd say 10. And the reason I say 10 is because your job becomes 10 times harder. So if you imagine going from 10%, 10 times 10, obviously 100. So your job becomes 10 times harder than what it would be. So you're
yeah.
already down 10%, right? They know that results haven't been good. They don't want you. Well, the problem is to get to 20% is harder than it is to drop 10%. So a few bad results, and that is it. You are close to the edge already because they're a couple of
Well,
points
no,
above
I totally
relegation.
agree. But I think Everton were in a bad position anyway, and they just made
Well,
it
of course
worse.
they
But
were. And
we
they're going to be
both,
anyway.
yeah, and I think we both agree on what we're saying. I think if you're a
Yeah,
chairman, you can look at it both ways.
yeah.
But I think Farhad Mashiri was a joke to a lot of people, and I think look, he wasn't a very good football, operator. Right, let's get that right. But
No, it was dreadful.
but he wasn't an idiot.
No, he was
You know,
dreadful in terms of football.
yeah, he was. But he also built a stadium that
He did, yeah.
that rivals it, and he was the one that got that done. And that it's almost trolling Everton at this point to say it because
Yeah,
he is now the guy that did the impossible. I mean, Everton are actually unique in that they wanted a new stadium. Like Liverpool didn't want Anfield, a new Anfield or whatever, because they like the old Anfield. The reason that everyone doesn't want a new stadium. Everton wanted a new stadium. Something like 60% of the fans wanted a new stadium.
yeah.
So every owner, including I think Bill Kemper was actually the owner at one point, if I'm not
Yeah, he was,
mistaken.
yeah.
And then he sold it, didn't he, to
Yeah,
Mashiri.
yep.
Um, the thing is, he didn't manage to do it. Mashiri did. He lost his entire fortune because of it. Uh, it's hard not to feel for him and empathise with him on that level. And so yeah, he made some silly decisions, and this manager one was one of them. But he always had the right reasons, and that in some ways is what made him a really bad chairman. I think is that he did actually have the right reasons, and Sean Deitch was actually a sensible appointment. I still
Very.
maintain that Lampard was a stupid one that followed on from another stupid one, and then he finally got it right. and this is my point I'm leading on to, is that the Freaking Group have come in and basically done what you've just said and said, well, he's not our appointment, sacked
Yeah,
him. When we know fine well that that's the exact type of person that Dan Freaking would have appointed if he had come in and he wasn't there.
yeah.
It
But
should...
I mean, Lampard is an interesting one because I don't know if it was stupid
Oh, I'm
originally.
sorry, it was.
No, no, it ended up being a very stupid appointment. But I think it was a case at the time of Mashiri saying, "Look, we've tried the proven coach. We've tried, so for example, we've tried Rafa. We've had
Yeah,
Ancelotti.
proven.
Okay, he was though, and he
Yeah.
didn't do bad at a few other
Well,
clubs that he
I'll
went
tell you
to.
one thing about Rafa. He knew his facts.
He knew his facts, yeah. But when I say proven, I don't mean in terms of always results. I mean he's been around the block. He's been a manager for a long time. That kind of proven in terms of he can do it. So
Yeah.
they've tried the proven route. They had Ancelotti before, which went all right, but they lost. Then they tried the proven route again. But a lot of Everton before that was trying the proven route, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of think, and it was a stupid appointment, but I don't think the reason behind it was stupid, if you get what I mean. The appointment
I
was.
do. I do get what you're
But the
saying.
reason I think is kind of like you change up a little bit, don't you? Because it's not working. So you think, like Chelsea have done actually, and it has worked for them, but there's a young coach out there. Let's try something different and try and
But
build with a young coach.
Lampard already had a dreadful record, really.
But there's the argument that Lampard got Chelsea into the top four in his only full season. Yes, in January they were 8th or 9th in the table. I completely agree with that. But he had one full season in which he got them into the top four. So Everton have probably looked at that, right? And you think he might not have been great in the second half, but he can pick up results because to get into the top four. Don't forget, this is
It's
when
no
teams
mean
weren't
feat.
bad. Teams weren't
It's no
bad that
mean
time.
feat, you know.
No, and you had United up there at
Yeah.
the time, City, Liverpool. All right, we had a slightly worse season because of our injuries, but we got into the top four. You had Arsenal, who were sort of lagging a bit, but they were up there in the top 6 or 7. Leicester, don't forget, were pushing for the top four until right at the end of the season. It was a tight battle. So on Everton's point of view, it's kind of like we don't want him to get us into the top four. So maybe he can push a few results and get us into a mid-table position, which is what they were expecting at the time. The appointment ended up being stupid. I'm genuinely agree with you on that. But it's kind of the whole young English coach, isn't it? Give him a chance.
Yeah.
When we've done what we've done, Rafa didn't work. So it's, Marco Silva probably didn't really work. No, like okay, he's gone on to prove himself at Fulham now, but he didn't really
Took a while.
work. Yeah, but they tried to get a coach then with a certain idea, and it didn't suit Everton. So
No.
they've obviously gone.
And
Look,
Angelotti was always going to go to a bigger club.
of course he was, of course he was, but I mean, it was a shock Everton managed to get him in the first place. Fair play to him in that
Yeah.
respect. But then it's kind of like, obviously, the proven coaches, we've tried that for such a long time. Just, I mean, it's
My
not
big
uncommon to
question is
see a
what the
club
hell
give a
was
young coach a chance, to
what
be
was Rafa
honest.
thinking though, taking that job?
We'll never
What
know
was
that. We'll never know that. What were they thinking going for him? But
uh,
Lampard, the appointment was disastrous, to be honest. In the first season, he kept him up, which I suppose he did what he was asked to do. You can't deny that. Because they
true.
were a mess with Rafa there. So he probably did do what he was asked to do. And then it went completely wrong. So the appointment was stupid, but I don't think the reasoning behind it at the time was.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. I still think at the time I remember saying it was silly, which
It was silly. It was. But there was a reason behind it.
yeah, there was logic. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'm not
I mean,
saying it wasn't silly.
Rafa defied logic. I feel like he went out
That
of his
was
way to
that
defy
was the
logic.
idea of silly. Rafa was
I think he went out his way to defy logic on that
yeah.
one.
And if
I
you
mean,
have Mashiri in a classroom, for example, that appointing Rafa, that's the kind of thing that you call him over to the front of the class and you publicly say to him, "You silly boy."
yeah,
But
literally.
Lampard is kind of like you call him over to the front of the class. You say, "Look, why have you done that?" But
Yeah,
he explains it, and it's kind of like, okay, you've got one chance here.
yeah.
Silly in the end, but logical. Young coach again. Like I
It's
said,
timeout territory, but
it
not quite detention,
yeah,
basically.
it can work. It's working for
The
Chelsea at the
thing is,
moment.
if he had appointed Lampard before Rafa, or instead of just not appointing Rafa, we'll go with, if he'd appointed Lampard and that was his only decision, I don't think the Everton fans would have been half as mad at him.
No,
But I think it was the series of pointless decisions. And look, the players as well. I know he spent a lot of money on players, and you can argue that the managers might have wanted the players or whatever. But I don't think, again, I think he would have gone away with that if he hadn't. I think Rafa was the last straw because I remember it happening. And I remember the Everton fans going,
yeah,
"What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, I remember it. But
I don't know any Everton fan, and I did. To be fair, at the time, I wasn't really acquainted with any Everton fans. But I gotta tell you, I never heard of any Everton fans that went, "Oh yeah, we love Rafa. He's gonna do a job for us." Not one.
no,
Not at
no,
the time, and maybe someone can dig up. I'd love someone to dig up some old clip of someone saying
I
it,
don't think there was.
but I don't think it existed because there was not.
No,
And I've never, at the time I wasn't massively acquainted with football. I followed it, but not pretty. I had better things to do at the time, really. Now it's religion, but look, at the time, maybe I didn't quite grasp the whole idea. But since before or since, I have never known a manager to get less backing from the fans.
no, it was stupid from day one. But I
Yeah,
think even with the players, like Mashiri's idea, and this is where it all went wrong in a football sense. Yes, okay, like you said earlier, the stadium. But his idea in terms of football was so off because when they had players or when they weren't finishing high enough in the league, his issue and his answer was just to throw money at a problem. Now,
yeah,
if you're going to throw money at a problem, you throw money somewhere it's going to work. I feel like Mashiri, if you have a group of players in a line that aren't that good, rather than going and being sort of analytical with your money, Mashiri was just throwing the money at the clubs and basically saying, catch this and we'll take the
yeah.
player in return.
Agreed. I agree.
Oh,
And
it's gone wrong again. Okay,
and
let's throw another
and
30
the
million.
and the clubs were going, oh yeah, you want to pay me 30 million to take this
Go
one? No,
ahead.
go ahead, yeah, you
I'll
be
give you an
my
example of what I would say was a very, very, very bad move. It was August 2019, to my knowledge. Moise Keane. They paid big money for him. I can't remember the exact fee, but they paid big money for him. He was young and kind of unproven, to be honest.
yeah,
Within a couple of months, he basically had his dad saying that he didn't want to be in the Premier League. That was by about October 2019. He wasn't doing anything. He was not working. When really, what I think at the time, they had a better squad than they got now. It's never going to win you trophies, but what they needed was a striker. So
yeah,
they've spent all this money on an unproven striker, but what they spent on him, they probably could have got a proven striker, to be honest.
yeah,
So it's what if the club says yes and they're sort of willing to sell, just throw money at them. And
yeah.
I think his answer for a lot of things is just throw money at them and see what happens. And that is why they spent £500 million, which a club to spend £500 million on players over a 5-6 year period should be really looking into the top half of the table if they've got that right.
I agree.
Brighton have probably spent less on that altogether. So £500 million, you should be looking at playing in Europe if you get that right.
Yeah, I agree. Because Arsenal recently have only spent seven. Well, let's say only. Sorry, Arsenal recently have spent 750 million or something. They're second or third average, not this season.
We haven't even spent 500, I don't think. Like in the
No.
last since that period of when Moshiri came in, so it was 2016 to 2022, I think was highlighted as the 500 million.
Yeah,
We haven't spent that in that, and we've won a Premier League trophies in other competitions like Premier League, League Cup, FA Cup, Champions League, UEFA Super Cup, and that's not obviously the whole Liverpool versus Everton thing either. That is logic of we haven't spent that much. So if you're spending it right,
we
what
haven't.
you
We
can
won the
do with
Conference League. We
yeah,
spent nowhere near.
yeah, what you can do with that money, if you get that right, Everton should be winning more than a lot
Especially
of teams.
back then. Especially back then.
Yeah,
Because nowadays, maybe not. I think you'd be forgiven nowadays for chucking 500 million and standing still. I genuinely think that's where we're at with transfers now. That
I
probably
think it
is.
depends where you are in the table. If you're higher up, yeah, but if you're down there, I mean,
No, if you're
no.
down there, it's different. But I'm saying if you were like Arsenal and you go and invest 500 million this season, next season, I don't think you romp to victory. I don't think it's as easy as that anymore
Oh,
because
you don't.
players, you only get about five decent players for that now, or six or seven, not much.
Yeah,
You know,
but then I suppose again it comes into recruitment. If you can find seven really decent players,
yeah,
and you
that's
can
true.
maybe pull them from leagues that aren't the Premier League, and you can get them a little bit
Well,
undervalued,
that's where we've gone. That's where we've done well, and obviously
Yeah,
Brighton are the big example. They're the poster boys for it.
yeah. I mean, we snapped up Salah for what 34.
Yeah, that was a bargain, wasn't it?
Um, Diaz for 49. Gakpo for 36. Nunes, I'm not even going to mention, but
Yeah,
I'm
that
saying
was
as a whole, I mean, Robertson cost us £8 million.
Trent from the youth system.
Trent's from the youth system. Robertson was 8 million. Gomez was 3.5 million as a youngster.
Yeah.
Um, well,
Oh,
McAllister,
look
he
at
had a
Gomez
35
now.
million pound. Yeah, £35 million release clause though for McAllister.
Yeah,
Sabosla was 60 million. I think the only, I mean, you've gone wrong, but we haven't spent massive amounts on some of the players that haven't worked out. Like Minamino, we paid 7.2 million for. The
yeah,
only two big spends that I'd say went wrong were Keita and Nunes, and
yeah,
Naby Keita was a disaster
yeah.
to
Because
the
they
point that
get
I
injured.
Yeah, and liked eggs for breakfast.
Yeah,
But it's to the point that I
probably
look
why he
now
got
and
injured.
£52 million on him. He was a really, really good player at Leipzig. I remember me and my dad talking about it when we signed him, and he had to stay at Leipzig for a year. But we were proper excited. Like, that is a player and a half.
Yeah,
Like, he got, well, it was a big thing when he came in. He got Steven Gerrard's number and everything. It was a big thing that, number 8. It's a
yeah,
massive thing when he came in. Like, Liverpool treated him like the next superstar, and he was at the time. He
yeah.
was 22, 23, playing like a beast. He could have gone really far.
How old is he now?
But
Do you know?
29 years old and worth £1.1 million.
Oh wow. Where is he?
Yeah. He was in Germany suspended, but I don't know if it ended up happening, but I think he's now in Hungary on loan.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
that went
so he
well.
might make 4 appearances between now and the end of the season.
Yeah,
But with Everton, I think the problem with Everton is they had too many Nunez's and too many Caters, to be honest.
yeah. I agree. Look, I know you've got training soon, so we're gonna fire on really. Uh, and so how long have we done? Let's have a look.
Well, we got plenty more time. It's just, yeah, when I said earlier, I mean, if he was appearing at 3 or 4 o'clock, it would have been a
Ah,
nightmare. But
55,
you,
55.
you
Okay.
managed to come at a good time, so we're fine.
Yeah, 55-ish. So I mean, we don't have much left to cover anyway. Really, the FA Cup. I mean, I think that's where we go now, isn't it? The FA Cup.
Weren't really many upsets, to be honest, were there? I
No.
mean, Doncaster beat Hull on penalties.
Yeah, I'll let you do all these little results because I want to focus on the big ones.
Yeah, I'll just cover the sort of, I mean, Plymouth beat Brentford. That was a shock.
Now, can we please have a minute's
No,
silence or a moment's silence for a certain club? Thank you. Arsenal have been a disaster.
thank you, Jackie Chan.
Arsenal have been an absolute disaster. That's all they
Arse.
deserve right now.
They've
Is
been
that,
a pile of arse.
yeah, and that's all they deserve is a moment's silence right now for us to, pay tribute to Man United for the first time ever, possibly, for causing the
Can we not
upset.
attach us to that, please?
Well, okay, I'll attach me to that. For causing upset the next morning like I'd never seen. But Martin Keown was, I got up for that.
I hate Martin Keown as a pundit. He's too
Yeah.
stroppy.
Oh,
He
really?
refuses
He
to, and
really
as
is.
Simon said it to him so many times, and it's so true. He refuses to see any logic.
Yeah, and he refuses to be subjective, objective. He's
Yeah,
always,
objective.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's always subjective.
yeah. And it's always like, no, this is something. No, actually, if you look at the raw stats, it's not.
Yeah,
Like, you are actually miles off of what you're trying to claim. And the more I feel like he tries to claim something, the more he makes himself look like an idiot.
I agree. But I think the problem with Martin Keown is, and like I said on Monday, I got up for that
But the
because
problem with him is he's a Donald donut, and
no,
Herbert.
the problem is his brain's full of hot air.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, quite literally.
Yeah, and so United did okay to do that. I think we're overblowing
Look,
their
no,
success.
none of them played well.
No, I think there was a brilliant game of football though.
It
I've
was a
got to
good
say,
game of football, but no team on paper really did anything extraordinary.
no, not no, certainly not. But I think United, for 10 men, played well to get to the penalties.
You say that, but
Arsenal,
sometimes going down to 10 minutes, it becomes harder for the other team. Not always, but sometimes it does make it harder. Yes, they played well, and yes, they got to the penalties, but I mean, Arsenal at the moment, like we started with, are so out of form at the moment
yeah,
anyway, that actually United probably should have won it.
yeah. But my point is that with 10 men, if that was Arsenal, they would have gone down. They would have just capitulated as they always do.
Well, yeah, blame the football again.
Yeah. Oh, that was just ridiculous. I want to touch
It
on that
really
for a
was,
minute.
yeah, I
And
do,
I,
yeah.
and I want to touch on as broadly the subject of Mikel Arteta because I don't think we call into question whether he gets sacked. I think that's way too premature. But
Yeah.
we do have to call into question why he's still there, which I know sounds like the same thing, but it isn't.
Mm,
Because I just think every time he loses, it's everyone else's fault apart from him or the
yep,
team, for that matter. The team are a disgrace. I mean, they've been exposed because the
yeah,
minute that Saka's gone, they fold. I mean, they really do fold.
yeah, they do.
And we've had injuries and we've not done well because of it. But I think we survive without key players more than they do,
Yeah,
because I guess less is expected of us, and that is very true. But I still think they relied on Saka so much, and when he got injured, I cheered in a way, not because he was injured. I obviously don't wish that on
You
anyone.
evil bastard.
Yeah, but you know, I really don't wish that on a serious note on footballers. I think but it is a part of the game, unfortunately,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
it
I
is.
can't feel too sorry for them on 200 grand a week.
No,
I'm afraid.
no.
But look, Saka getting injured, I knew that was the end of Arsenal's season because
Yeah,
they just had no plan B. It's a bit like Ange. It's actually a bit like Ange, but in a less
yeah,
extreme way. They have no plan B. And we've seen that. They've got 11 men, but you wouldn't think it. And Kai Havertz has gone back to being Kai Havertz. Uh,
yeah. I mean, some of the stuff people have been saying has been completely wrong, though.
Pardon?
Some of the comments he's been getting is completely wrong again,
Oh,
and that
you mean the abuse?
yeah, I think
Unbelievable.
that highlights the problem with football, doesn't it? Really?
Unbelievable. And the fact, what disgusts me, and it shouldn't disgust me more than any other thing, but it does, is that it's Arsenal fans doing it because
Yeah,
these are the people that should be, saying no to all this, and the people that
yeah.
should be defending. And it's his wife as well. She's done nothing wrong.
No one's
She-
probably even really seen her.
no, she's done absolutely nothing wrong. I took the liberty of looking at the messages, on the AI stuff, and it was shocking stuff. I don't know what
It
ones
was.
you've seen, but uh,
I've seen a few.
the one about murdering a child, unborn child, etc. And
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. And it really made it really. I'm really passionate about this because it's just got to stop football. And look, we love football as much as the next person in line. Of course we do. This is what we do. But football's a sport. It's
but a
not.
lot of these people don't love football in that way.
No,
They're
they
a lot of
don't. And this is
social media
they're
buffoons.
just thugs. They're
Yeah,
keyboard thugs, and they're not even
yeah.
physical thugs. They couldn't
They wouldn't
batter an
say anything to
eyelash.
anyone's face. They wouldn't come up to us and say anything to
No,
our
they,
face,
they
and we're not even a football player or
no
anything.
they
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 wouldn't say
could
nothing to
they
you.
couldn't batter an eyelash.
No, they would be the first people to melt in a situation of something
Yeah.
happening.
And it's just I just want to take a minute or two to talk about this, but they don't deserve the air that we
They
breathe to
don't
talk
know.
about this. But Kai Havertz, and look, I'm an objective, but I'm not gonna stop criticizing Kai Havertz because of this, because it has to be said, and we're not pundits and we're not podcasters and we're not anything if we don't talk about things
Yeah,
like that.
100%.
But the abuse is unacceptable, and it's unacceptable from any club, and it happens a lot of the time to a lot of different fan bases. There's no club I
Yeah,
don't think that's immune from it.
no.
Millwall had a problem famously years ago with it. Oddly enough, Theo Pathetis, of all people, was the one
Good
that,
old
yeah,
fetus.
that was the one that sorted all that out, and he did. I mean, what a job he's done.
Yeah,
Because the new owners, I give credit to the ownership of Millwall, but I think they inherited the fortune that they now profit from, in the sense of the stability of the fan base and the less the bitterness is gone. But as a subject in general, football's a sport. It's not. You lose a game, we're all upset when we lose games. We don't want to lose games, but it might be the players' fault. And look, I am all for the criticism of players that goes on. I'm all for people saying, you should be doing better, but there's no need
yeah,
to make it personal. There is no need, and fans pay their money to see the game and boo, cheer all you like. I don't care about that. So it's pathetic when players go on about it. And
yeah,
it's more pathetic that players go on about it because of this sort of stuff that's real, that actually
yeah,
players do get, and it's a very few players actually that get it really personally, and that's what we should be trying to stop. Not the player welfare, not the less games, not the fans booing at them. That's just part of football, and that's what you get paid 200 grand a week to do.
yeah,
You don't get paid 200 grand a week for someone to threaten to burn down your house, murder your unborn child, or anything like that. You don't, and there's no excuse for it. None.
And the thing is, I think in football as well, well, not even just football, but in any job, but especially football because of the wages and that and the lifestyle. But no amount of money is worth having to go through that.
No,
All right,
absolutely not.
on the pitch, you're a player, fair
Yeah.
enough. But if they come off the pitch, all right, they might have whatever they want and as much money as they want, but they're no different to us, really.
No, they're not. They're not.
They're just people.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They got to have thick skin. I do believe that because they've got to endure criticism.
You've got to,
That's not
yeah,
criticism. That's barbaric.
yeah.
That's
There's criticism
barbarism.
is criticism is me saying, "Oh, You know, Havertz the other day, he played a bit shit, didn't
Yeah,
he?
and he
Really,
did, and he is. In the minute, I don't
yeah,
see the value in Kai
he has
Havertz
his moments, I
as an
think.
Arsenal player. He has his moments, but that's fine. But that's not why they bought him. He is a flop for what they bought him for. He's a flop, and that I don't mind saying that. Right? You
No,
cannot make it about his family or him. I'm sure he's a good person, Kai Havertz. I'm sure he is, and I'm sure Trent's a good guy. You know, these people are. And by the way, I want to pay a bit of credit unusually because you know me. I want to pay an unusual amount of credit to the Liverpool fans over the Trent situation and the Salah and the Van Dijk situations because they've handled it the way that a fan base should. And there will always be one or two exceptions, I don't know, but I haven't heard it.
no,
And
I haven't.
that to me signals a fan base that in historic times, let's be honest, have been not the nicest fan base to deal with. Um, as a collective rather than individuals. And I think that's changed over the last few years, and you got to give that credit. You got to give credit to that.
I just think it's like you said earlier. It doesn't even deserve our time, but the thing is, at the same time, it does deserve our time because it is so wrong.
It
They don't
is.
deserve our time, but the fact that it's happening, I think, does because it shouldn't be happening.
It does get to me because it's in some ways slightly personal in the sense that it happens to politicians as well. And
Mm,
obviously, I'm a councillor, so I see it not so much to us. It does happen occasionally, but not in the way it does to MPs. And it's the same thing. You know, you're allowed to not like politicians. You're allowed to dislike them.
of course,
You're allowed to hate what they do, and we do. You know, we have our chats all the time. I know your feelings on the current government, but
I
we
absolutely hate the prime minister, but I
yeah.
still wouldn't go around saying
But
things like that.
ultimately, people hate the prime minister, but they hate the office rather than the guy. I'm sure the Keir Starmer that goes to do, have a family night out is allowed to have a family night out. He's not prime minister then. He's a dad, a husband, a son who wants to. I assume is I don't know what it is if his parents are still about, but he's a son, brother, family member. He deserves to be able to go out like anyone else, and like the football world as well. People are people outside of work, and you can't hate the person. You can hate the profession. You can hate the office. You can hate the badge. You can dislike the badge, the office, etc. But the
Yeah,
people are different. They're people like us, like you just said. You know,
yeah.
you might see the Prime Minister having pie and mash. I don't think you start chucking stuff at him. If he was at a school, you might chuck an egg at him, which I still find inappropriate, by the way. But he's the Prime Minister then. If you shout at him as Prime Minister, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I find that to be acceptable. If you shout at him
That's,
when he's having pie and mash, I think that's where the line draws.
but that's the meaning behind my words, and I say to you, like I said just then, I hate the prime minister.
Yeah,
I don't know the person, but I
yeah,
hate the prime minister, as
yeah.
in terms of I hate the
The
job that
Office,
he's
yeah,
doing. I
yeah,
hate how he's doing the job.
yeah,
I mean, he could be a perfectly nice geezer outside of that, but as a prime minister, I don't like not again, not the person. I don't like the prime minister.
exactly.
I don't know the person.
Yeah, and look, I have a different experience, so I wouldn't go as far as you, and you know my views on this. So we're not gonna get into that.
No,
But what I will say is, it's the same as football. That you may dislike the badge, and it's the same situation. You might dislike the number 9 badge, you know, but you can't dislike the guy behind it, who's
no,
probably got 2 young kids at home. But anyway, that's all I want to say on that. I want to move on from
yeah,
that because it's incredibly negative.
yeah. But I think it had to be highlighted.
It had to be. I completely agree. But anyway, I think that probably is there anything else you want to talk? I mean, let's talk about Tottenham Tamworth actually, because there's not much to
Replays,
say.
replays. I think it's like
Replays,
we
yeah,
said yesterday. I mean, the amount of money that these clubs miss out on them. Do you know what they deserve a replay in a way that
yeah,
I know the FA Cup and the rules don't say it, but they took a club like that to extra time.
yeah,
That if that was a 0-0 after 90 minutes, normally that's a replay. So they've missed out there.
yeah. I
But I
totally
think
agree.
you can't say anything apart from, to be completely honest, fair play to Tamworth because they really, really deserved
They
to
did,
probably go through,
and the
and they came
FA.
close.
I want to say one thing: the FA should be ashamed of themselves. They're meant to be the government of football. They are the equivalent of our prime minister and our, whatever. They should be telling the clubs what to do. It can't be the other way around. And you wonder why they want a regulator. I don't like the idea of a regulator, by the way. I think it's an absolute disaster, and it will be a disaster, mark my words. But you can see why they want one, because this has got to stop.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
FA should be the regulator, and the Premier League should self-regulate properly as well. But the FA are the ultimate authority, and they're not doing anything.
I think this is the whole thing is that these clubs have, if you're big or you hold any status, they have too much say.
Yeah,
Like we need to, and they say, um, yeah, but they've put this much into grassroots football in terms of a return. Yeah, but if a club's going to get to this stage and a club's going to play like they did the other day, in all fairness, they should have won it, but they didn't take their chances at the
yeah,
end. But if they're going to play like that, they deserve
yeah.
why the replay would benefit them so much but it's a hard one because they're always going to be outnumbered. But that £33 million that's going into grassroots football doesn't exactly benefit the clubs, does it? Because
No,
it's going
it's an
across.
insult.
Yeah, so
It's,
you wonder what it's going into. Who's getting that money? Is it the heads of the leagues? Where is it going
and
exactly?
I'll tell you what else was an insult while we're on the subject. 'Cause I was listening to it the other day on Talksport. The dementia fund, something like £3 million. What an
Mm,
absolute insult to those older players. And
yeah,
the younger players, look, the facts are out now, and the younger players get enough money; they should be taking care of themselves. And that sounds harsh, but I gotta say that is true. They get thousands, hundreds of £1,000s a week for that reason,
we
most
should be
likely.
putting money aside
They should be
for
putting money
anything, to
aside.
be honest.
Yeah, but the older players who weren't paid as much, you're talking about probably 200 quid a week back then. It wasn't football wasn't huge in that sense, commercialized.
Yeah,
They should have money. And look, people are saying the government should step in. I disagree. It's not the government's problem. It's not taxpayers' money that should be going into this because it's a football matter. And where's the money going to come from? Us. But the
mm,
football clubs, who they played for, by the way, who they gave service to, these are legendary players. Kenny Dalglish's generation, for example. I think he has Alzheimer's from what I remember, but that could be something I've made up. But I'm pretty sure he had
I
some sort
think
of.
you might have made that up. It
I
could be
think.
me being clueless, but I've never
I,
seen his name linked.
well,
Like,
he had something. I can't remember what it was, but I can't
he
remember
had
now.
COVID at one point.
But that's
And he
true.
was in hospital for a long time with that. But
Yeah.
other
Well,
than that, I've not heard of him having anything.
okay.
It could
No,
be me
it could
having
well
that
that could
information.
well be me. That could well be me. But I thought I read that somewhere. But my point is that his generation now, a lot of those people will be getting it,
Yeah,
and Kenny Dalglish may well be minted now because he took the Liverpool job in 2012. Let's face it.
I
They
don't think
probably
it was on massive money, to be honest.
no. Well, I don't think he did it for the money, but I think he would have got a healthy payout because of it. I mean, he would have
Yeah,
because the football landscape had changed, and you don't
of
pay
course, you'd
someone.
always get a payout, but I just don't think it was a massive contract. But
No, it
it was
didn't
more
have to
than
be.
probably we'll ever see in our
What
lives.
I'm saying is, back then they were on about the equivalent of £2 grand a week or something. So even a £2 million payout would have been, it would have been a healthy amount for a man that probably didn't have that much money anyway.
Mm,
But most other players didn't do that. They went on to have real problem. Paul Gascoigne as well. His generation again. We're getting a
yeah,
bit closer to the money now, but these guys had no clue at the time what was going on, and there has to be money from the Premier League and all the leagues in many ways to put aside for that reason, and it's got to be a significant chunk. I mean, if each club, right, in the Premier League put £5 million, you'd have £100 million in that pot.
yeah,
And I think it's not enough, but you're getting somewhere.
yeah,
And they've all got the money to do it. Even Luton Town in the prospective League One next season probably have enough money to do it. Maybe not 5 million, but they could even again they could put a million in. Norwich could put a million. And then all these clubs put that in, and the lower down the league, the less money you expect. But then you've got a decent pot there that can be used for that purpose, and you're still talking 200 million. Divide them maybe by hundreds of players.
yeah,
It's a start, and
yeah.
that's not even
It is
happened
a
yet.
start.
And I just think that's outrageous. But we're deviating a bit. But that I just wanted to bring
No,
that up.
I mean, I agree, and it is a start. But I suppose leagues and so many places will always argue right or wrong, and I like I said, I completely agree with you on the fact that they should put something aside. But so many people argue that yeah, but you could have got that if you weren't playing football.
Yeah, and I guess they have a
Football
point.
is a sport that will refuse whether it. You'll never know if it was through football or if you were
Yeah,
going to get it anyway
but
because we could get it.
there's a
We
point
we
to that.
don't
But
know.
I think there's a disproportional connection between heading a
Yeah,
ball and
there is.
Alzheimer's and dementia, and true, you can of course get it but it's like saying, well, you could have had an ACL injury if you weren't playing football. You could have slipped on the train track or something. You know, the,
ACL, I nearly did a few weeks ago in the gym, but we
oh,
won't get onto that.
yeah,
Um,
well, Saka, no, not
Somehow,
Saka.
by some miracle, Gabriel Jesus,
Yeah, Jesus.
yeah, somehow I managed to. I don't know. I reacted in about a quarter of a second and managed to prevent it, but I came close.
Yeah, not good.
But no, to be honest, I think it's a case of they should put the money aside, and because it's an increased chance,
Yeah, I
and
totally agree. Well, I
but
originate the
football is
point,
a
but
sport that refuses to take the blame. They won't take the blame for that happening to someone.
no. And the FA should also be contributing more than enough money because
What
they're,
about this
again,
PFA, the Players Association? Where
the
that
PFA as well, yeah.
if the
It's their
PFA is
problem.
all about sticking up for players and complaining when players don't get what they want, but then there's the
Yeah.
money there, why are they not putting
Yeah,
anything in?
because the PFA represented those players back in the day,
Yeah,
probably. I don't know
yeah, it
much
still
about the
represents
PFA,
players
but
now. It still
yeah.
represents players, but
Well, there you go.
no, but they're kind of like the gobs of football. So it's like if you're that concerned, why don't you contribute? If everyone contributed, you'd be fine.
Yeah, and maybe Martin Keown can contribute some of his
Maybe
money.
Martin Keown can fuck off.
Well, yeah, there is that.
There
Uh,
very much is that, to be
yeah,
completely honest with you, and I
yeah.
stand by that.
I
He's a
like the
hot
other
air
Martin though.
balloon.
What
He's
happened
a
to
hot air
Martin
balloon in
O'Neill?
the head. I don't
He's off.
know.
He's off now. I feel like they've fallen out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Danny
Maybe.
Murphy as well. Oh, they still
He
got
was
him
there.
on.
No, he was there recently.
Oh yeah, he was actually. Yeah, but not the other guy as well. The Scottish one. Oh, what's
Graham
Graham
Souness.
Soonish? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but the Martin
Anyway,
Keown can just be one. Don't get me started on Martin Keown. I don't like him. I don't want to talk about Martin Keown. I don't want to talk about him.
I agree.
I will for the podcast like I had to earlier, but I will not talk about him
But
after
it's a
I've
bit
done
like
that.
Keir Starmer.
I hate Martin Keown just as much as I hate what the job is. But then it's the whole thing of you can say it comes back to what we said earlier about being a person, but
Exactly.
you can't excuse the fact that person or not, Martin Keown is full of hot air. You
Yeah.
cannot excuse that fact
I'm
at
sure if
all.
you weren't talking about football, he'd be a perfectly pleasant lad.
It probably is. I think he's got the air of confrontation about him, though. To be honest, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying he would be like that
He's the
with every
sort of
Tottenham.
guy that wouldn't pay for your beer anyway.
You can't get past that. And I think because he's made such a stand of it and such a big thing, you can't get past the fact that he's just full of air.
Yeah. Well, he's a hot air balloon.
He really is.
And even then, he didn't manage to take off. So that tells you
I
how
was about to
useful
say
he
he's
is.
a hot air balloon that can't float.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Millwall's good though.
Yeah,
You
I'll
know,
let you chat about Millwall for a minute.
3-0 win last night. I happened to be at the game, and one of the youngsters came on. He scored a goal out of nowhere. I've never heard of him. I've
Yeah.
genuinely never heard of him, but it was a good game. I think there was a lot of missed chances, but no, fair play. They will now face Leeds, which there might be a
Interesting. Be a
chance I
good
might
game.
be going to watch. Funny enough.
I'd probably watch that if I could, but I'm not in a position to, unfortunately. Uh,
Well, I actually may be there. I'm not. It's not confirmed yet, but I might be
you lucky bugger.
away at Leeds as well. What a stadium
Ah,
that'll be!
lucky
What an
you.
atmosphere!
Oh, if it's away, I might go on my own then. Uh,
Sounds a bit lonely. You might as well come with us.
well, yeah, if you want to invite me, I'll come with you, yeah.
Yeah,
But if it's away at Leeds, that would be very good. We can go sort of, you and Joe can get a hotel room and I'll get one next door.
I'll probably come with you. You know we'd have a laugh.
Yeah, that's true.
um, but no, I think it was a good game. Leeds is going to be a difficult game, but obviously Liverpool going through as well. Not complaining about that. I mean, it's not a glory win. We should have won that game.
Yeah,
It was more a game for them, really. I think, but just to play Liverpool and the profile of what that would have meant. There's a lot of players that come from that sort of area in their team, so it would have probably meant a lot to the players.
yeah,
And I think it was right in a way that a lot of people did focus more on them than Liverpool, and normally you don't see that. So I actually
yeah,
quite liked it.
I agree. And Newcastle Bromley again, same thing.
Yeah,
Bromley got a good game, St James's
the first
Park.
goal, the first goal in the game. I mean,
Yeah,
fair play to them.
yeah, exactly. Um, City are not
West Ham,
back. I was going to say
sit.
before we go, City are not back.
Yeah,
Just because they got a good win over Salford City, you
yeah,
know, which is the equivalent of Man United. Just saying. They're
basically,
practically
yeah,
owned by them.
yeah, practically.
It's owned
But
by their
no, West Ham. I
mouthpieces.
think if you didn't have so many injuries, I think you You probably could have
We
actually
played so well
put
in
a
the
result
first
up in
half.
that game. Yeah, you could
But
have put a result up.
Villa were also dead. I will say that. I don't want to take give myself too much credit there. Villa were
One
dead in
injury
the first
deflates a
half.
team. One injury deflates a team. Three injuries.
Cripples it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
But
we've not had that in years,
no, it's
Loads
not
of
very
injuries
common.
at once. No,
It's not very common in any match, really. But
no.
it's going to cause damage. I mean, you've then got to make changes, which changes the way that you've
And
planned to
people
play
forget that they're
slightly.
not
And
robots. So when they come back, they may have permanent injuries, might have temporary injuries. These guys are human.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying is in terms of you've then got to make so that's three substitutions. So
Yeah,
that might change the way you're playing slightly in the dynamic of your team. But then you've only got two subs left to make when you actually want to change things. It
agreed.
really limits what you can do.
Agreed.
But I don't think it was a bad game. I
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
You stayed in the game
Yeah, we did.
until the injuries
And
forced you out of it.
that's where Potter seems different to our last two.
Yeah,
But even though
yeah.
Lopetegui did stay in a couple of games, and I remember saying that at the time, and he did. So
Newcastle.
yeah, but we were never out that game. But I mean, even like other,
No, I'm just saying he also had his games.
oh yeah, he did.
I mean,
Newcastle was
when I feel like under him, when you lost, you kind of did lose. But
yeah, but when
when
we
he
won, we also
actually,
won.
yeah, that's what I was trying to say with Newcastle. When when he went to win and he played really well and it worked, then you were brilliant. But
Yeah,
you can't do that twice a
agreed.
year. It's not
Agreed.
enough.
No, it really isn't. Anyway, on that note, I think we're going to end it here because we need to have a little chat about the some back end podcast stuff. So
Yeah, so you get to listen to the football stuff. We have to deal with the boring shit.
yeah, exactly. But you just get to listen to pure, unfiltered, dynamic content delivered by your
Yeah,
two least favorite people.
exactly. And then we have to go away and do all the boring stuff in the background.
Yeah, because we're really good like that.
Apparently so.
Yeah. Well, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.